Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of RiesKitchen. In this, our second series looking at cooking challenges, today we're going to be making pasta. Homemade pasta is just the best. And I'm going to be sharing with you one of my traditional family recipes that my dad taught me, based on a Maltese traditional ravioli or ravioli. So let's get started with our ingredients. Now, because I'm doing gluten-free, I'll tell you the gluten-free and the non-gluten-free options here, but let's start with our flour. So all up, we need 300 grams of flour. So I have 250 grams of plain flour and 50 grams of potato flour. Then I have 4 eggs, have them at room temperature so they're not too cold, a tablespoon of olive oil and some extra flour for dusting. Again, for gluten-free, it needs to be potato flour and not corn or rice because they'll turn your pasta a little grey. That's it for the pasta. Then for our filling, we have some ground black pepper, 2 eggs, some parsley that I've taken out of the garden. You probably won't need all of that, but it's a good whack anyway. Some homemade ricotta, and if you check out my blog, you'll see the recipe for homemade ricotta, or you could be using 250, 300 grams of store-bought ricotta. Then for the sauce, we have some good quality parmesan, an echalot or small onion, a can of crushed tomatoes, a clove of garlic, and I've just grabbed some fresh oregano from my garden just to add a little bit extra to that. Now for the pasta. The pasta we're going to make today is much more like a traditional Italian egg pasta. It's certainly not the pasta that my dad would make, rubbing lard into the flour, because for gluten-free it just doesn't work, and unfortunately you end up with a pot of boiling glue. So we've got our 300 grams of flour, so 250 grams of plain and 50 grams of potato, and I'm just going to mix those two together. And from a gluten-free perspective, that potato just helps hold it better, so I get a much firmer pasta. All right, so now this is the bit that the kids love, because we're literally just going to tip it onto the board. I'm going to make a well in the centre of that, and into that I'm going to add my oil and the eggs. Now, depending on the humidity of the day, we may need all 4 of these eggs, we may only need 2. We'll just see how we go. Now the fun bit, as we start to incorporate that in. Okay, we're certainly going to need at least a 3rd egg. This was always my dad's job though. But we're certainly going to need the 4th egg. And as you can see, I'm kneading it in with the heel of my hand, and it's starting to come together quite well. And as it comes together and you've kneaded it in to what becomes itself a nice firm little ball with a smooth bottom, that's when we're at the right spot. So when we get to that point, if this was wheat flour, I would let it sit and rest for a good half hour. Being gluten-free, I don't need to let it sit for that long. I can go straight into it and we can start putting together our filling, and that'll be just enough time then to roll out our pasta. All right, I'm going to clean this bench up. All right, so now for the filling. So first up, I'm just going to chop a little bit of parsley. So now to put it all together. So into this bowl, I'm going to tip in my homemade ricotta. Now for the recipe for ricotta, or for this entire recipe for ravioli, check out my blog, which is listed down below there. What we're going to do is add our parsley, a really good grinding of black pepper, give it a mix with a fork. But the way to know that you've got your filling right is the squelch sound that it will make once I've put the eggs in and you use a potato masher. So pop the eggs in. And now using a normal potato masher. Now if yours isn't squelching and you're worried that you've already used 4 eggs in the pasta and 2 eggs now in the filling and don't want to use any more eggs, you can add a little bit of milk just to moisten it. But with homemade ricotta, you rarely need to because it is so moist. All right, I'm just going to give that a quick little taste. It shouldn't need any salt. No, it's perfect. Because again, it's fresh, but good whack. All right, so our filling's done. So now for the really fun bit, and that's rolling the pasta. Now, if you don't have a pasta machine, you can roll this out with a rolling pin, but it is so much hard work. It is much easier using a pasta machine. I've had this, I don't want to say on camera for how long, but for many, many years. It is manual, so I'm going to be rotating the handle, but it's important that you understand a little bit how your pasta machine works. Electric ones are absolutely fine too. So it has a knob at the front here that leads the thickness and moves the rollers closer and further apart. So we always start on number 1 and click in. Now I've attached it to a board just to protect my beautiful black bench top, but it's however you're comfortable. It is often easier to have multiple hands because you'll notice once I get started, I'm going to be feeding, I'm going to be turning, and I'm going to be catching at the same time. So you don't want to have too big a piece of pasta. Having an extra person to help you run it through is always good. But today, I'm not so lucky. So my piece of dough that we made earlier, I'm just going to cut that into 4 just to make it a little bit easier to work with. Now, with your pasta machine, you should never ever wash it. To clean it, just run a piece of paper towel through your rollers to clean your rollers and use a pastry brush and just flour so that it always, otherwise it'll rust and you'll damage your machine. Now I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of that potato flour in and run my rollers just to make sure that my rollers are nice and clean and dry and my pasta's not going to stick. So with my pasta on the widest nozzle, and we're going to do this a few times just to help, especially if we haven't kneaded too well. Now that's cracked a little on the top, so we just have to be careful. I might have to put a damp towel over it. So just widen it out a little bit. And now literally, we just run her through. So now with our strip, we're going to fold it in half and we're going to run it through again on the same number 1 notch. But we always put the fold end through first. That way the air bubble comes out through the top and we don't get a hole in our pasta. Now for the first one, always do it at least 3 times. So fold it in half and feed it through again. Now fold it in half again, but this time I'm going to move my notch down to number 2 to get it a little bit thinner. Always do every thickness at least twice. Okay, the second time for number 3. Now that's pretty good, and I think I will leave it at number 3 today because that's rolled up beautifully. It's nice and silky smooth. It's about the right thickness that I want it for the ravioli, or if I was making lasagna, this would be a perfect thickness too. So now it's a matter of going through the rest. And then we can start put the filling, but I don't want it to dry out, so I'm just going to pop it on the bench here with a little flour underneath it and a damp tea towel over the top while I keep going with the others. Alright, so now we've rolled out our pasta and I'm not sure how much of this you can see, but there's heaps here. Alright, ready to go. Now there's 2 ways to do the next bit. I'm going to show you the way my dad always did it, which means that we lay our piece of pasta here. We then get teaspoons full of our beautiful filling and we pop them in the middle, and then about 2 fingers apart we pop the next one. And now you can use either milk or water to just brush along what will be our edges. So along the 2 long lengths and then each short length in between each one. And now we just fold our pasta up and over. And now pressing down around those edges, get a good seal. And at the top join here. Alright, now with a bit of the potato flour on my bench, and my trusty glass. I'm just going to cup those out. We lift each one up and pop them down on a tray, and when the tray is full we can just put some cling wrap with a little bit more flour on top until we're all ready to cook. Alright, so now it's time to put this whole dish together. So that batch made 32 ravioli, and I've got the pot of salted water coming to the boil ready to go now. So we need to make our sauce, because once we put the ravioli in it only takes 6 minutes. So the sauce needs to be ready. So first up, I'm just going to finely chop our echalot and garlic. Just add our can of crushed tomatoes. Oregano, I'm just going to dice up some oregano. Okay, I'll just add that into our sauce. All right, so this is obviously boiling now. Woohoo. Okay, so very gently lower the amount in that we want to cook into the water, and then 6 minutes later we're ready to serve. All right, that's 6 minutes. We can turn that off. And they've all floated to the top, which is how we can tell that the pasta's cooked. All right. Now, at home, of course, you could easily put this over the sink and lift that up. But just here, this is going to make quite a mess. So I'm just going to take them out one at a time, serve them up and put the sauce on. Can't wait. I'm so hungry. All right, a spoonful of sauce. I always like lots of sauce. All right. And then for the final touches, some of our gorgeous parmesan over the top. And for colour, just a sprinkle of some more parsley. And we're ready to go. And as usual, the best bit is in the tasting. All right. Oh, and it's going to be hot. Oh gosh, that's good. Brings back all those wonderful childhood memories. Until next time, everybody. Ciao.